Hello, and welcome to lesson 26 of the Learning Guitar series. In this lesson, we're going to discuss the chords that derive from the shape of A minor, in this case Dorian. And when I say the shape of A minor, I mean the shape that we derive from, open chord A minor. Of course, we think of it as a shape because we look at it like this imaginary barré and we transpose it in all keys, obviously. So here it would be D minor, here it would be F minor, here it would be B flat minor, and so forth and so on. And that's why we call it a shape or a form, as opposed to a chord. Okay, the chord takes its name once we start moving it around and transposing it. So as usual, we have like a PDF. In this case, it's like 2 pages. These are all chords that start from the shape, which is called, I call it the A minor shape. In this case, I specified it as Dorian because, as you will see, the 6th is there, the 9 is there, and the 11 is there. And since we've done the harmony and theory lessons, you should know why, it's Dorian. So we have 1 flat 3, 5 flat 7, and the extensions for Dorian are 9, 11, and 13. So in this case, I'm approaching it Dorian as a chord because beside the basic triad 1 flat 3 5 or the extension to the flat 7, the further embellishments are going to be 9, 11, and 13, or 2, 4, and 6. 9, 11, and 13, as you know, is only is the same thing, an octave higher. So as you can see, you have a few barré-based chords, shapes. Of course, one is your root note. So basically anything you find on the PDF, you can transpose it in whatever key. Your reference is your root note. And in fact, you see that also there are chords with a white dot where basically you're not playing this note. This is the chord you're playing, and this is for you as a reference. Not every chord has to contain the root note. Now, the reason I allow myself to omit the root note, so for example, in this PDF, you find chords. I'll do this in E so I can use, the empty on the bass. So we're looking at this. Okay. One of the shapes looks like this. And in fact, it's got flat 3, 5, root note, and that's another flat 3. In isolation, this is actually a major 6 chord. Believe it or not. So you studied this chord when you did major. But in the context of E, for example, in this case, as you can see, it sounds minor. Because that's a flat 3 from an E perspective. So if E is number 1, in this case is a G, is a flat 3. So you'll have several shapes included in the PDF where you see those white dots, which are notes you're not playing. So like in this case, where you're only playing 4, 1, flat 3, flat 7, flat 3, 5, 6, flat 3, 5, flat 7, flat 3, 6. If you just look at major and minor, major 1, 3, 5, minor 1, flat 3, 5. So when you're constructing a chord, what the difference between the two is the third. It's either major third or it's a flat 3. I can always omit the root note, especially if there is a bass player, because that's not what's defining the chord. And I can always remove the 5th, because that's also not defining the chords. These are in common in between major and minor. It's the flat 3 that kind of makes me hear, oh, that's minor, or oh, that's major. In other words, let's go back to E. This is a flat 3 here, and this is a flat 3 here. For as long as I contains those, every other note in the scale will give me a nice sound. Now this is 4, flat 7, flat 3. To me, these are all minor chords, E minor in this case. Because of the flat 3, okay? In this particular PDF, I strictly kept it minor in the sense that the flat 3 is always present, is either here or here. The root note is not necessarily always there. Same thing, the 5th might not always be there. And also I structured it in a way that some chords start with the root in the bass, some chords have the flat 3 in the bass, and some chords might have the 5th in the bass. How do we practice this? Well, as I said, like if you use a drone, kind of helps. So if you want to do it in E minor, it kind of helps, because it gives you 5 strings. Or, of course, like, you just go through the sequence. That's a normal E minor, E minor 7, E minor 6, E minor 7, you know, that's a sus chord, minor 7, sus chord with a 9 and a flat 7. You know, try them out, you know, and see how many you can retain. Another way of doing it, like, for example, is to use a drone. Again, I'll do it using a E. That's a 6 over here. That's a 6. A 9 and a 6. One more thing you can practice, of course, is the relation in between the chords and the scale. So you can always loop a sequence based on, you know, these chords, and then play on top of that. I'll show you what I mean. So we have a sequence, right? This is all you need. That's our scale. Right? And of course, you can practice all the different, let's call them pattern, but, you know, interval studies that we've done, triadics. The only difference is maybe don't play necessarily as an exercise. Maybe give it a rhythmic sense. Let me show you. Let's do it with the triads contained, okay? So you have this. This would be like an exercise. Right, not very musical. But if we start doing this, it's the same thing, but because of the rhythmical turn, it starts sounding more like phrasing. Same thing with the intervals. And like we discussed, let me stop this. Like we discussed, I think in lesson 17 or 18, when I started discussing the concept of phrasing. Again, the aim is always to try, especially when after you learn something, to try and use it in a creative way, to try and phrase, because that's where your personality will come up. The aim, as I said, like eventually is to, let's do it with the drone, is to try and phrase, use the scale, use the arpeggio, use the chords. I'll use a drone so it gives you a reference of, you know, I'm going to stay in E minor. It's a good key for today. You see, you can feel it's minor because I just played a segment of the arpeggio. And that flat 3 is making you hear a minor sound, even if I'm not playing a chord as a chord. That's the flat 3. Try and land, so the last note of your phrase is on a different interval, so you can hear how it resolves your phrase or not. In terms of some notes, they resolve it neatly. By resolving it, I mean, you create a tension and then you resolve it. So it's a point of rest. Some other notes resolve less. We're still talking embellishments here, not alterations. We'll discuss those in the future. But even embellishments, you'll notice how obviously the root note will feel more like a resolution, the flat 3, the 5, and as you move away from the triad, it still resolves, but in a different fashion. So like, as you do that, your ears will develop you're training your ears in a way at the same time. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm gonna finish on ninths, so on seconds. This note or this note, okay? You see how it sounds when you handle that? Let's try a flat 7, which is this. See how different it is? Let's finish on the 5th. See how more conclusive it feels. Let's finish on the root note. Right? It feels like that's the end of it, right? On the root note. Well, if I finish on the 6, it will feel still like kind of tense. It will still go somewhere. You'll see that's a 6. That's the 4th. Root note. I hope it makes sense. Again, you're developing several fingers at the same time, even if you might not realize it. So when you study your arpeggios, you're definitely developing your training. In terms of hearing intervals, same thing when you're studying scales, but as opposed to just do the scale up and down. So I think this is it for this particular lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If anything, I hope you find it informative, and it's been a pleasure as always, and see you next time.